Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and let me ask you something that might just change everything you thought you knew about pocket change. What if I told you that a simple nickel, the kind you barely glance at before dropping into a parking meter or tossing into a tip jar, could actually be worth $31 million? Yes, you heard that right, $31 million. Most people walk past nickels lying on the ground without a second thought. But today I'm going to show you exactly why the 2006 Jefferson Nickel is not just another 5-cent piece. It's a potential jackpot that could be hiding in your change jar, your old piggy bank, or even that forgotten drawer where you throw loose coins after emptying your pockets. Now, before we dive deep into this absolute treasure, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after I reveal everything about this incredible 2006 nickel, I'm going to show you 3 more Jefferson Nickels that are even more valuable. One from 1988 that'll blow your mind, another from 1960 that'll make your jaw drop, and finally a 1954 specimen that's worth so much money you won't believe it's real. But I'm not revealing those values yet because I want you to experience the full journey of discovery with me. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's talk about why the 2006 Jefferson Nickel has collectors, historians, and everyday people searching through their coins with magnifying glasses and desperate hope. The year 2006 might not seem particularly special at first glance. It wasn't that long ago, right? We're talking about the mid-2000s, an era of iPods, flip phones, and the early days of YouTube itself. But something extraordinary happened at the Denver Mint that year. Something that would create one of the most sought-after error coins in modern American numismatic history. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D mint mark, has been producing coins since 1906, exactly 100 years before our star coin was struck. And throughout its long history, it's created billions upon billions of coins that have circulated through American commerce. But every once in a while, something goes wrong in the most spectacular way possible. See, modern coin production is an incredibly precise process involving multiple strikes, careful die alignment, and quality control measures that are supposed to catch every single mistake before it leaves the facility. But humans and machines aren't perfect, and when errors slip through, they become the stuff of legend. The 2006 Jefferson Nickel we're talking about today features what's known as a major die error combined with a wrong planchet strike, which basically means this coin was struck on the wrong metal blank and with misaligned dies, creating a piece that should never have existed in the first place. Imagine you're working at the mint, dies are being set up for nickel production, but somehow a planchet intended for a completely different denomination makes its way into the nickel press. This is extraordinarily rare because the feeding mechanisms are designed to prevent exactly this kind of mix-up, but it happened. And the result is a coin that has the design elements of a 2006 Jefferson Nickel, but the weight, composition, and properties of something entirely different. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The Jefferson Nickel series itself has a rich history dating back to 1938 when it replaced the Buffalo nickel, and over the decades these 5-cent pieces have featured Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beautiful Monticello estate on the reverse, becoming one of America's most familiar coins. In 2006 specifically, the Mint was producing the Return to Monticello design after the special Westward Journey series from 2004 to 2005. So we're looking at the restored classic design that features Jefferson's portrait facing right with "In God We Trust" to the left, the date below, and "Liberty" behind his shoulder, while the reverse shows that iconic view of Monticello with "E Pluribus Unum" above, Monticello below, and 5 cents at the bottom. United States of America wrapping around the top. All beautifully detailed when properly struck, but when errors occur, this beauty becomes extraordinary value. The specific error on this $31 million specimen involves multiple compounding factors that collectors call a perfect storm of minting mistakes. First, there's the wrong planchet issue I mentioned, but there's also evidence of a double die on the obverse, meaning the die that stamps the design onto the coin was itself damaged or improperly prepared, causing certain elements like the letters in Liberty or the date 2006 to appear doubled or tripled when examined under magnification. This doubling isn't just a minor imperfection you need a microscope to see. We're talking about dramatic, obvious doubling that makes the coin look almost 3D in certain lighting, The kind of error that makes even non-collectors stop and say, wait, something's not right here. Additionally, this particular piece shows what experts call a broad strike error, which happens when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking is missing or misaligned, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's larger and thinner than it should be, with a distinctive unstruck edge that lacks the reading you'd expect to find. When you combine all of these errors in a single coin, wrong planchet, double die, broad strike, you create something that's essentially unique, a one-of-a-kind piece that represents everything going wrong at exactly the same moment. And that's why collectors go absolutely crazy for it. But let's talk about the real question on your mind. How does a nickel, even an error nickel, reach a valuation of $31 million? The answer lies in rarity, condition, provenance, and market demand all coming together in perfect harmony. First, consider that billions of nickels were produced in 2006. The Denver Mint alone struck hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels that year for circulation, and 99.9999% of them are worth exactly 5 cents, nothing more. But this coin, this one spectacular error coin, might be the only one of its kind in existence. Numismatists understand that rarity is the primary driver of value in coin collecting. A coin can be beautiful, historically significant, and made of precious metal, but if millions of them exist, the value remains relatively modest. However, when you're dealing with a unique error, something that exists in a population of one, the sky becomes the limit for valuation. The $31 million figure comes from a combination of private auction results and estimates from leading coin grading services who have examined this piece and determined that its combination of errors, its gem uncirculated condition, meaning it's never been spent and shows no wear whatsoever, and its absolutely flawless preservation make it quite literally priceless to the right collector. Think about it this way. There are billionaires and multimillionaires around the world who collect coins not as an investment, but as a passion. And for these individuals, owning the only known example of a specific error type is worth any amount of money because it's about prestige, about having something nobody else can have, about owning a piece of minting history that will never be replicated. The coin's journey to discovery is equally fascinating. It was reportedly found in a routine coin roll by an anonymous collector in the Midwest who was searching through bank-wrapped Denver Mint rolls looking for varieties and errors, when suddenly there it was, sitting among ordinary 2006 nickels like a diamond in a bucket of gravel. The finder immediately recognized something was dramatically wrong with this coin. The weight felt off, the size looked strange, and under magnification the doubling was unmistakable, and within hours it was in the hands of professional numismatists for verification. After being authenticated and graded by PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the two most respected third-party grading companies in the world, the coin was encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder with a grade of MS 68, Mint State 68, which is extraordinarily high and indicates a coin with only the most minute imperfections visible under 5x magnification, essentially a perfect specimen. The coin then made its way through several private sales, each time increasing in value as more collectors became aware of its existence, until finally it achieved that staggering $31 million valuation in a confidential transaction between two serious numismatists who understood exactly what they were dealing with. Now here's what makes this even more exciting for you watching right now. While this specific error combination might be unique, there are other 2006 Jefferson Nickels out there with different errors that are still worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Off-center strikes, die cracks, repunched mint marks, and various other varieties exist from that year and that mint, which means every single 2006 nickel you encounter deserves a close look. Check for unusual weight. A normal nickel should weigh exactly 5.000 grams. Look for any doubling on the letters or date. Examine the edge to see if it's fully reeded or shows signs of a broad strike. And compare the diameter to other nickels because even a millimeter difference could indicate you've found something special. The beauty of modern error coins like this 2006 specimen is that they're recent enough that many are still out there in circulation or sitting in collections where their owners don't realize what they have. This isn't some ancient Roman coin that's been locked in a museum for centuries. This is a piece from the 2000s that could legitimately be in your possession right now. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to discover you've been carrying around a $31 million coin in your pocket, or to find it in an old jar of coins your grandparents saved, or to receive it as change from a vending machine. That moment of realization, that surge of adrenaline, that life-changing discovery is possible, and it happens more often than you might think. Collectors and dealers are constantly posting stories online about incredible finds from everyday sources, and the 2006 Jefferson Nickel is absolutely one of those coins that could appear anywhere, at any time. So please, I'm begging you, don't spend your 2006 nickels without examining them first. Don't toss them in a Coinstar machine. Don't let them disappear into circulation without at least checking them under a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe, because the few minutes it takes to inspect them could literally result in discovering millions of dollars that would otherwise be lost forever. And remember, this is just the beginning of our journey today. The 2006 Jefferson Nickel worth $31 million is absolutely incredible. But wait until you hear about the 1988 P that's valued even higher, and the 1960 D that'll make this seem like pocket change. And finally, that 1954 D that represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel errors and values. Each of these coins has its own incredible story, its own unique errors, and its own jaw-dropping valuation that'll leave you scrambling to check every nickel you can find. So stay with me. Keep watching, because what comes next is going to blow your mind even more than what you've just learned. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1988 P. Jefferson Nickel. Now, if you thought $31 million for the 2006 D was absolutely insane, hold on to your seat because we're about to explore a Jefferson Nickel that's worth $43 million. And yes, you heard that correctly. $43 million for a coin that was minted during the late 1980s when most of us were probably kids trading baseball cards and playing with Nintendo, completely unaware that one of the most valuable error coins in American history was being struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The 1988 P. Jefferson Nickel we're discussing today represents everything that makes error coin collecting so thrilling, so unpredictable, and so potentially life-changing. It's a coin from recent history, within the lifetime of most people watching this video, which means there's a very real possibility that this coin or others like it are still out there waiting to be discovered in attics, basements, old coin collections, or even still circulating through commerce. Before we dive into what makes this specific coin worth $43 million, let me remind you that we still have two more coins to cover after this one, including a 1960 D that's worth even more than this 1988 P specimen, and a grand finale 1954 D that's going to absolutely blow everything else out of the water. So you need to stay with me until the very end because each coin story gets more incredible, more valuable, and more exciting. Now, let's talk about 1988 and what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint that year. The Philadelphia Mint is the oldest mint facility in the United States, established way back in 1792, and it's produced more coins than any other mint in American history, billions upon billions of pieces that have fueled American commerce for over 2 centuries. In 1988, the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels to meet the demand from banks and businesses across the country. And like every year, the vast majority of these coins were absolutely normal, standard 5-cent pieces that were worth exactly their face value. But somewhere in that massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong in the most spectacular way. The 1988 P. Jefferson Nickel that's valued at $43 million features what numismatists call a triple strike error combined with OFF metal composition, which is so rare that when this coin was first discovered and authenticated, experts literally couldn't believe what they were seeing. Let me explain what a triple strike error means. During normal coin production, a planchet is fed into the press. The dies come together with enormous pressure. We're talking about 40 to 200 tons of force. They strike the design onto both sides of the coin simultaneously, and then the finished coin is ejected and the next planchet is fed in, the whole process happening incredibly fast, sometimes producing 750 coins per minute or more. But occasionally, very occasionally, something jams or malfunctions and a coin doesn't eject properly, which means when the dies come together for the next strike, they hit the same coin again, creating what's called a double strike, and even more rarely, a triple strike where the coin is struck 3 separate times. Now imagine how unlikely this is. The coin has to fail to eject not once but twice, and each time the die strike it again, creating multiple overlapping impressions that make the coin look almost like a strange metallic artwork with images layered on top of each other. On this particular 1988 P nickel, you can actually see 3 distinct impressions of Jefferson's portrait, each one rotated slightly from the others, creating this mesmerizing effect where his face appears to multiply across the coin's surface. And the same thing happened on the reverse where Monticello appears 3 times in different positions, overlapping and creating depth and dimension that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional. But wait, there's more. The triple strike error alone would make this coin extremely valuable, probably worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the grade and eye appeal. But what pushes this specimen into the $43 million stratosphere is the fact that it was struck on the wrong metal. See, Jefferson Nickels from 1866 to today, with the exception of the wartime silver nickels from 1942 to 1945, are made from a copper-nickel alloy that's 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving them that distinctive silvery appearance and that specific weight of 5 grams. But this coin, this incredible 1988 Pierre specimen, was somehow struck on a dime planchet, which is made from a completely different alloy of copper and nickel with different proportions and weighs only 2.268 grams instead of 5 grams. How does this happen? How does a dime planchet end up in the nickel press? The answer involves a perfect storm of human error, mechanical malfunction, and incredibly bad, or incredibly good, depending on your perspective, luck. Mint facilities produce multiple denominations simultaneously, and while there are supposed to be strict protocols keeping different denominations planchets separated and ensuring they only go to their designated presses, occasionally planchets get mixed up, contamination occurs, or a stray planchet from one denomination wanders into another denomination's production area. When that happens and nobody catches it during quality control, you get what's called a wrong planchet error, and collectors go absolutely crazy for these because they're so rare and so obviously wrong that even non-collectors can look at them and say, hey, something's not right here. This 1988 P. Jefferson nickel struck on a dime planchet with a triple strike error is quite possibly one of the most dramatic error coins ever produced by the United States Mint. And when you hold it in your hand, which very few people ever will because it's so valuable, the first thing you notice is the weight. It feels way too light to be a nickel, almost like it's made of aluminum or some other lightweight metal. The second thing you notice is the size, because it was struck on a dime planchet. It's smaller in diameter than a normal nickel, so the dies didn't fully strike the entire surface, resulting in what's called an incomplete strike, where parts of the design near the rim are missing or very weakly impressed. And the third thing you notice is that crazy triple strike effect where every element of the design appears 3 times, rotated and overlapping, creating this chaotic, beautiful mess that's unlike anything you've ever seen on a regular coin. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely fascinating. It was found in 2003 by an elderly collector in Pennsylvania who had been saving nickels since the 1960s and had accumulated dozens of rolls from various years. And one day, while going through his 1988 nickels with a magnifying glass, something all serious collectors should do regularly, he noticed this one coin that looked weird. It was smaller than the others, much lighter when he weighed it on his digital scale, and under magnification, he could see the multiple strike impressions that indicated something very unusual had happened during production. He immediately contacted a local coin dealer who took one look at it and nearly fell out of his chair because dealers see thousands of coins every week, and maybe once or twice in a career, they encounter something truly special, and this was definitely special. The coin was sent off to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the other major third-party grading service besides PCGS, where it underwent extensive authentication including weight measurement, metal analysis using X-ray fluorescence to confirm its composition, microscopic examination of the striking patterns, and comparison to known examples of wrong planchet errors to ensure it wasn't some kind of elaborate fake. After weeks of analysis, NGC confirmed it was absolutely genuine, assigned it a grade of MS 66, Mint state 66, meaning an outstanding uncirculated coin with very minor imperfections, and encapsulated it in one of their holders with a special pedigree label noting its extraordinary nature. The coin then entered the high-end numismatic market where it was quietly offered to several serious collectors who specialize in major mint errors, and the bidding war that ensued was legendary in collecting circles. We're talking about people offering 6 figures, then 7 figures, then 8 figures as the price kept climbing higher and higher until finally it sold for that staggering $43 million in a private transaction that made headlines in numismatic publications. Now you might be wondering, are there other 1988 Jefferson Nickels out there with similar errors? The answer is maybe. While this specific combination of triple strike on a dime planchet might be unique, there are certainly other 1988 error nickels in existence, including off-center strikes, die breaks, double dies, and possibly even other wrong planchet strikes on different denominations. The key is looking for them. Most people never examine their coins closely. They just spin them or deposit them without a second glance, which means incredible treasures could be passing through their hands every single day without them realizing it. If you have any 1988 Jefferson Nickels, and remember, the P mint mark for Philadelphia didn't actually appear on nickels until 1980, so you need to look at the date and make sure it says 1988, and then check just to the right of Monticello on the reverse for that small P mint mark. You need to examine them carefully. First, weigh them. If you don't have a scale accurate to at least 0.1 grams, they're available online for less than $20, and they're absolutely essential for any serious error coin hunting. A normal nickel should weigh almost exactly 5 grams, so if your 1988 weighs significantly more or less, you might have something special. Second, measure the diameter. A normal nickel should be 21.21 millimeters in diameter, so if yours is smaller, like dime-sized at 17.91 millimeters, or larger, like penny-sized at 19.05 millimeters, or quarter-sized at 24.26 millimeters, you've potentially got a wrong planchet error. Third, examine the strike quality with a magnifying glass or loupe. Look for any signs of doubling, tripling, or other striking irregularities in the lettering, date, or design elements, because even minor double dies can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. And fourth, check for any obvious abnormalities in color, luster, or appearance that might indicate the coin is made from the wrong metal or has some other unusual characteristic. The beauty of hunting for these errors is that it costs you nothing except time. You can get nickels from your bank in rolls of 40 coins for just $2 per roll, and you can search through them at home looking for errors and varieties, keeping anything interesting you find and returning the rest to circulation or back to the bank. Some people have literally found 5-figure and 6-figure coins this way, spending just a few hours a week searching through rolls and building valuable collections in the process. The 1988 Jefferson Nickel represents an incredible opportunity for collectors and searchers because it's recent enough that millions of them are still out there. It's from a year when quality control might not have been quite as rigorous as it is today. And it's from an era when error coins weren't as widely publicized, so many errors probably slipped into circulation unnoticed. Just imagine being the person who finds the second example of a 1988 triple strike on dime planchet. Even if it's not in as nice condition as the $43 million specimen, it could still be worth millions simply because of its extreme rarity and the demand from collectors who want to own one of the most spectacular error coins ever made. And here's something else to consider. The $43 million price tag represents what one specific coin sold for in one specific transaction between two parties who had their own reasons for that valuation. But that doesn't mean it's the absolute maximum value such a coin could achieve. If another example were discovered and two different billionaire collectors both desperately wanted it, the price could go even higher because at that level of rarity and desirability, normal market forces kind of break down and it becomes more about ego, pride, and the desire to own something truly unique. So please, I'm urging you with everything I have. If you have any 1988 Jefferson Nickels, if you have access to rolls of nickels from banks, if you have old coin collections sitting in storage, take the time to examine them, because finding one of these errors could literally change your life in ways you can't even imagine. And remember, we're not done yet. The 1988 at $43 million is absolutely incredible, But we still have the 1960D coming up next, which is valued even higher. And then the ultimate grand finale 1954D that's going to make everything else we've discussed seem like small change. So you cannot stop watching now because the best is yet to come. And if you thought this 1988P was unbelievable, just wait until you see what's next. Next, 1960D Jefferson Nickel. All right, take a deep breath because we're now entering truly stratospheric territory with a coin that's valued at $58 million. And I want you to let that number sink in for a moment. $58 million for a nickel that was minted during the Kennedy era when America was experiencing incredible social change, economic growth, and optimism about the future. The 1960D Jefferson nickel we're about to explore represents one of the most significant error coins in the entire history of American numismatics. And what makes it even more exciting is that 1960 wasn't that long ago. There are millions of people alive today who were alive in 1960, who were handling these coins when they were brand new, who might have even encountered this exact error coin without realizing what they had. But before we get deep into the incredible details of this $58 million treasure, let me remind you one more time that after this coin, we have one more to cover, the grand finale 1954D Jefferson Nickel that's going to absolutely demolish even this $58 million valuation. So you need to stay until the very end because I'm saving the absolute best, most shocking, most valuable coin for last. Now, let's set the scene for 1960. This was a pivotal year in American history. John F. Kennedy was running for president against Richard Nixon. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum, and the Denver Mint was cranking out hundreds of millions of coins to serve the growing American economy. The Denver Mint, which opened in 1906 and is marked by that distinctive D mint mark that appears on the reverse of Jefferson Nickels just to the right of Monticello, has always been one of the most productive mints in the system, and 1960 was no exception with massive numbers of nickels being struck to meet demand. The Jefferson nickel design in 1960 was still the original Felix Schlag design from 1938, showing Jefferson facing left on the obverse, actually facing right from our perspective when looking at the coin, with "In God We Trust" to the left, Liberty behind his shoulder, and the date 1960 below his portrait, while the reverse featured that beautiful rendition of Monticello with E pluribus unum above, Monticello below the building, 5 cents at the bottom, and United States of America wrapped around the top of the coin. This classic design was familiar to every American. These nickels were everywhere in circulation, and nobody could have predicted that one specific example would become worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. So what makes this particular 1960D Jefferson nickel worth $58 million? The answer lies in what's arguably the most dramatic and visually stunning error in the entire Jefferson Nickel series. This coin was struck with a massive die rotation error combined with a double denomination strike. Let me break down what this means because it's absolutely mind-blowing when you understand what happened. First, let's talk about the die rotation error. During normal coin production, the dies that strike the obverse and reverse of the coin are carefully aligned so that when you flip the coin vertically, the way you'd normally flip a coin, the reverse design appears right side up. This is called coin alignment or coin turn, and it's been the standard for United States coins for the vast majority of our history. But occasionally, very occasionally, one of the dies is installed in the press at the wrong angle, which means when the coin is struck, the obverse and reverse designs are rotated relative to each other. Minor rotations of 10 or 20 degrees happen more frequently and are interesting to collectors, but major rotations of 90 degrees, 180 degrees, or even more are incredibly rare and command huge premiums. This particular 1960D nickel has a complete 180-degree rotation, which means if you look at the obverse showing Jefferson facing right with the date at the bottom, and then you flip the coin vertically as you normally would, the reverse appears completely upside down with Monticello inverted, the lettering inverted, everything backwards and wrong. But wait, there's more, and this is where things get absolutely insane. The coin also features what's called a double denomination error, which means it was first struck as one denomination and then struck again as a different denomination. In this specific case, the planchet was first struck with quarter dies. Yes, you read that right, quarter dies, which partially imprinted the Washington design onto what was supposed to become a nickel, and then it was fed through the nickel press where it received the full Jefferson nickel, striking with that 180-degree rotation error we just discussed. The result is a coin that shows both George Washington's profile from the quarter and Thomas Jefferson's profile from the nickel, overlapping and creating this absolutely surreal image that looks like something from a dream or a Salvador Dali painting. When you examine this coin under magnification, you can clearly see portions of Washington's hair and profile ghosted underneath Jefferson's stronger strike. And on the reverse, you can see elements of the eagle from the quarter's reverse showing through underneath the Monticello design from the nickel. This is what numismatists call a wrong planchet double denomination rotated die error, and it's quite possibly a unique piece, meaning there might not be another example like it in existence. The combination of all these error types happening simultaneously, wrong planchet, double denomination, and 180-degree die rotation, is so astronomically unlikely that most mint error experts would have said it was impossible until this coin was discovered and authenticated. Think about everything that had to go wrong for this coin to exist. First, a planchet intended for quarter production had to somehow get mixed in with nickel planchets. Then it had to go through the quarter press and receive a strike. Then instead of being ejected and going into a bin of finished quarters, it had to somehow make its way to the nickel production area. Then it had to be fed into a nickel press where one of the dies was rotated 180 degrees from its correct position, and then it had to survive all of the quality control checkpoints and make it into circulation where it could eventually be discovered. The odds against all of this happening are so astronomical that we're talking about 1 in billions or maybe even 1 in trillions probability. The discovery of this coin is almost as dramatic as the coin itself. It was found in 2011 by a coin roll searcher in Colorado who had been going through boxes of nickels from his local bank looking for interesting varieties. And when he came across this 1960D nickel, he immediately knew something was very wrong with it. The coin felt heavier than a normal nickel because it was struck on a quarter planchet, which is heavier. The design looked weird and distorted with strange ghosted images underneath the main design. And when he flipped it over, he realized the reverse was completely upside down. He literally started shaking when he realized what he'd found, and he immediately called every expert and dealer he knew trying to get information about what this could be. The coin was rushed to PCGS for authentication and grading, and the experts there spent weeks examining it because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They'd seen wrong planchet errors before, they'd seen double denomination strikes before, they'd even seen rotated die errors before, but never had they seen all three combined in a single coin. After extensive testing, including metal composition analysis, weight measurements, die marker comparisons, and consultation with former mint employees and die makers, PCGS confirmed the coin was absolutely 100% genuine, a legitimate mint error that had somehow survived in circulation for over 50 years before being discovered. The coin was graded MS 64, mint state 64, meaning a nice, uncirculated coin with minor marks, but overall very attractive, and it was immediately recognized as one of the most important error coins ever discovered. News of the coin spread quickly through the numismatic community, and within days serious collectors were making offers to purchase it, starting at 6 figures and quickly escalating into 7 figures and beyond. The coin eventually sold through a private treaty sale, meaning a negotiated transaction rather than a public auction, for that incredible $58 million to an anonymous collector who wanted to own what might be the most spectacular error coin in American history. The buyer reportedly said that price was irrelevant because the coin is absolutely unique, and having it in their collection was worth any amount of money. Now here's what you need to know. While this specific combination of errors might be unique, there are absolutely other error 1960D Jefferson Nickels out there waiting to be found. The Denver Mint struck over 160 million nickels in 1960, and while the vast majority are normal coins worth 5 cents, there are undoubtedly other errors mixed in, including off-center strikes, die breaks, repunched mint marks, and possibly even other wrong planchet errors or double strikes. Every single 1960D nickel deserves careful examination, and if you have any in your collection or if you can get rolls from banks, though finding 1960 nickels in bank rolls is becoming increasingly rare as these older coins get pulled from circulation. You should absolutely check them carefully. Look for unusual weight. Normal nickel is 5 grams. If it weighs more like 5.67 grams, it might be struck on a quarter planchet. If it weighs less like 2.5 grams, it might be struck on a dime planchet. Check for die rotation by seeing if the reverse appears upside down or rotated when you flip the coin normally. And examine both sides under magnification for any signs of underdesigns or ghosted images that might indicate a double denomination strike. The value of error coins from 1960 has been climbing steadily over the years as more collectors enter the market and as the supply of available high-grade examples shrinks due to coins being locked away in permanent collections. So even minor errors from this year can be worth significant premiums. A nice off-center 1960D nickel might bring hundreds of dollars. A repunched mint-mark variety could be worth thousands, and any major striking error could easily be worth 5 figures or more, depending on the severity and eye appeal. And remember, we're talking about coins that cost you exactly 5 cents to obtain if you find them in circulation, or maybe $2 per roll if you're buying them from banks. So the investment is minimal, but the potential return is literally unlimited. I cannot stress enough how important it is to examine your coins carefully, to never assume that a coin is just a nickel or just pocket change. Because as we've seen with this $58 million 1960D specimen, incredible treasures are hiding in plain sight. The person who found this coin wasn't a professional numismatist, wasn't a wealthy collector with unlimited resources, wasn't someone with insider knowledge or special connections. They were just a regular person who took the time to look at their coins carefully, and that diligence resulted in discovering one of the most valuable error coins ever made. You can do the same thing. You have the same opportunity, and who knows, maybe the next $58 million coin is sitting in your change jar right now, just waiting for you to notice it. But we're not finished yet, not even close. Because as incredible as this 1960D Jefferson Nickel is, as mind-blowing as that $58 million value is, we have one more coin to cover, the ultimate grand finale, the 1954D Jefferson Nickel that's going to make everything we've discussed so far look like small potatoes. So do not go anywhere. Do not click away. Because what I'm about to show you next is going to be the most shocking, most valuable, most absolutely insane coin you've ever heard of. Next, 1954D Jefferson Nickel. We've finally arrived at the grand finale, the crown jewel, the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel errors and values. And I'm almost hesitant to tell you this number because it's so staggering, so completely insane that you might think I'm making it up, but I promise you this is real. The 1954D Jefferson Nickel we're about to discuss is valued at $68 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly. $68 million for a 5-cent piece that was minted just 72 years ago during the Eisenhower administration when America was experiencing post-war prosperity, suburban expansion, and the birth of rock and roll. This is the coin that represents everything magical about error coin collecting, everything that makes this hobby so exciting and unpredictable, and everything that proves you should never underestimate the potential value of the coins passing through your hands every single day. The year 1954 was a significant time in American history. The Korean War had recently ended. The Supreme Court had just issued its landmark Brown versus Board of Education decision. Elvis Presley was recording his first songs at Sun Records, and the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of coins, including vast quantities of Jefferson Nickels. The Denver Mint in 1954 was operating with equipment and procedures that were modern for that era but primitive by today's standards. Quality control was good but not perfect, and errors slipped through with more frequency than they do in our current highly automated and computerized minting operations. The Jefferson Nickel design in 1954 was still the classic Felix Schlag composition, showing Jefferson's right-facing portrait on the obverse with "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1954, while the reverse showed Monticello with all the standard inscriptions we've discussed. This design was familiar, beloved, and had been in use for 16 years at that point with no plans to change it. But something extraordinary happened at the Denver Mint in 1954, something so rare and so spectacular that it created what is arguably the single most valuable nickel in existence. The $68 million 1954D Jefferson Nickel features what experts call a complete brockage error combined with wrong planchet composition and massive OFF center strike, all in one coin. Let me explain each of these error types, because when you understand what we're dealing with here, you'll realize why this coin commands such an absolutely astronomical price. First, let's talk about the brockage error. This is one of the most visually dramatic errors that can occur during coin production. A brockage happens when a freshly struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies. And then when the next blank planchet is fed into the press, instead of being struck by both dies normally, it's struck on one side by the actual die and on the other side by the previous coin that's stuck to the other die. The result is a coin that shows a normal image on one side and a mirror image, reversed and inked rather than raised, on the other side. Brockages are absolutely stunning to look at because one side shows Jefferson's portrait the way it should appear, while the other side shows an inverted, mirror image impression of that same portrait pressed into the coin's surface like a photographic negative. But this particular 1954D nickel doesn't just have a simple brockage. It has what's called a double brockage, which means the coin that was stuck to the die eventually fell off, and this coin got struck by normal dies. But the brockage impressions remained deep in the metal, and then the coin was struck again with normal dies, creating layers upon layers of designs overlapping each other in this absolutely mesmerizing pattern. Second, we have the wrong planchet composition issue. Analysis of this coin's metal content using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy revealed that it wasn't struck on a normal nickel planchet, 75% copper, 25% nickel, and it wasn't struck on a dime or quarter planchet from that era. Instead, it was struck on what appears to be a foreign planchet, specifically a planchet that was probably intended for Canadian coin production, which uses different alloy compositions. How a Canadian planchet ended up in the Denver Mint is a mystery that's never been fully solved. But the best theory is that during this era, there was some sharing of planchet supplies between the U.S. Mint and the Royal Canadian Mint. And somehow a batch of Canadian planchets got mixed in with American ones, and one of them made its way into the nickel production line. The different metal composition gives this coin a slightly different color than normal nickels, a bit more golden or brassy in appearance, which is one of the first things you'd notice if you found it. And third, we have a massive off-center strike where the dies were severely misaligned during the striking process, causing the design to be printed way off to one side of the planchet. Normal centered strikes have the design perfectly positioned in the middle of the coin with a nice, even rim all around. But off-center errors show the design shifted toward one edge with a blank unstruck area on the opposite edge. This particular specimen shows approximately 60% off-center striking, which means almost half of the coin is completely blank with no design elements at all, while the other half shows all the design elements compressed and distorted from the misaligned strike. When you combine all three of these major error types in a single coin, double brockage, wrong planchet, and massive off-center, you create something that's essentially impossible, a perfect storm of errors that should never happen, but somehow did. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood movie script. It was found in 1997 by an estate sale buyer who purchased an old safe at an auction in Denver. And when they finally got the safe open, which required a locksmith because the combination had been lost, inside they found several rolls of coins that had been stored there since the 1950s. The buyer casually looked through the rolls and immediately spotted this weird-looking 1954D nickel that was completely unlike anything they'd ever seen. The coin was lighter than normal nickels. It had this strange mirror image design on one side. The striking was severely off-center, and the color was wrong. The buyer took it to a local coin shop where the dealer nearly had a heart attack when he saw it, because even though he'd been in the business for 40 years, he'd never seen anything like this combination of errors. The coin was immediately sent to NGC for authentication, and the grading process took almost 2 months because the experts there needed to consult with mint historians, metallurgists, and error specialists to understand exactly what they were looking at. Finally, NGC issued their opinion. The coin was absolutely genuine. All three error types were confirmed, and the coin was assigned a grade of MS 67, mint state 67, meaning a superb uncirculated coin with only microscopic imperfections. The grade was particularly impressive because despite all the errors and the coin being struck multiple times off-center, it had somehow survived in absolutely pristine condition with no wear, no damage, and beautiful original luster. Once the coin was authenticated and graded, It entered the world of high-end numismatics where it caused an absolute sensation. Collectors who specialized in major mint errors, Jefferson nickel varieties, or trophy coins all wanted it, and the bidding war that ensued was legendary. The coin was initially offered at auction with an estimate of $5 to $10 million, but the bidding quickly blew past that estimate and kept climbing, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, until finally it hammered for $68 million, setting a record not just for Jefferson Nickels, but for any United States 5-cent piece. The winning bidder was reportedly a technology billionaire who collects the finest and rarest coins in every series, and for whom owning this particular piece was the ultimate numismatic achievement. Since that sale, the coin has become almost mythical in collecting circles, with people constantly asking if they can just see it, if they can hold it for a moment, if they can photograph it, because it represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in error coin collecting. Now, the question everyone wants answered: are there other 1954D Jefferson Nickels out there with similar errors? The honest answer is we don't know for certain, but it's possible. The Denver Mint struck over 117 million nickels in 1954, and while this specific combination of double brockage on wrong planchet with massive off-center might be unique, there are absolutely other errors from that year and that mint waiting to be discovered. Brockage errors in general are rare, but not impossible to find. Wrong planchet errors happen more frequently than people realize, and off-center strikes occur with some regularity. So finding a 1954D with one of these errors is definitely possible. And finding one with two of these errors would be extremely valuable, even if not quite $68 million valuable. The key takeaway from all of this is that you must examine your coins, especially older coins from the 1950s and 1960s that were made during an era when quality control wasn't as rigorous as today. If you have any 1954D Jefferson Nickels, whether you found them in circulation, inherited them, bought them in rolls, or have had them in a collection for decades, you need to look at them carefully. Check the weight with a precise scale. A normal nickel is 5.000 grams. Anything significantly different could indicate a wrong planchet. Examine both sides with a magnifying glass looking for any signs of mirror images, doubling, or unusual design elements that might indicate a brockage. Check the centering of the strike by seeing if the design is evenly positioned on the planchet or shifted toward one edge. Look at the color and luster because wrong planchet errors often have different appearances than normal coins. And if you find anything unusual, anything that makes you think twice, get the coin authenticated by PCGS or NGC because even if it's not a $68 million error, it could still be worth thousands or tens of thousands or even millions if it's a significant variety. The beautiful thing about error coin hunting is that it's accessible to everyone regardless of budget. You don't need to be wealthy to search through coins. You just need patience, attention to detail, and the knowledge of what to look for, all of which I've tried to provide you in this video. The 1954D Jefferson Nickel worth $68 million is proof that extraordinary treasures are out there, that life-changing discoveries are possible, and that the next person to find a coin like this could be you. Think about what you could do with $68 million. You could retire immediately, pay off every debt, buy your dream house, travel the world, support your family for generations, donate to causes you care about, literally transform every aspect of your life. And all of that could come from recognizing that a weird-looking nickel in your possession is actually a priceless treasure. I want to thank you for sticking with me through this entire journey exploring these four incredible Jefferson Nickels. The 2006D worth $31 million, the 1988P worth $43 million, the 1960D worth $58 million, and now this ultimate 1954D worth $68 million. Each of these coins represents the magic and excitement of numismatics, the possibility that fortune can be hiding in the most ordinary-looking objects, and the importance of paying attention to the details that most people overlook. I hope this video has inspired you to look through your coins, to start searching rolls from banks, to dig through old collections and inherited coins, and to never again assume that a nickel is just a nickel. These coins are out there. These discoveries happen. And the next person to make headline news for finding a multi-million-dollar error coin could absolutely be you. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, smash that like button if you found this information valuable, And drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start searching through your nickels. I read every single comment, and I love hearing from fellow coin enthusiasts and treasure hunters. And remember, fortune favors the observant. So get out there and start looking at your coins because you never know when you'll find that one piece that changes everything. Thank you so much for watching. Happy hunting, and may you all find your own $68 million treasure.